we're trying a whole new kind of sourdough loaf today. My grandbaby loves blueberries. She's a good eater, but boy, you throw blueberries in front of her, she's a little over a year old, and she knows a little bit of sign language. This means please. And you give her a handful of strawberries, and she just takes about a handful and shoves them in her mouth, please. And she keeps on doing this, wanting more and more. I think yesterday she must have had 30 blueberries. You know, I don't know where they all went. So, of course, I'm going to try a blueberry sourdough loaf. And I've been looking around at some recipes, and this one is a blueberry lemon sourdough loaf. So I started out with dried blueberries and I hydrated them. I'm taking the lessons from what I found with the cranberries. If I put fresh fruit into a loaf, it's hard for me to manage the moisture level. And I've put these dehydrated dried fruit into water, and I find that they rehydrate that way, but they don't fully rehydrate. So before I put them in the loaf, so they don't mess with the hydration level of the loaf itself, and they don't get all mushed up. And so this is the way I'm doing it, and I'm seeing support for that in some of the other recipes that I found. So I've put hot water into these blueberries. That's a prep, and I've put them aside, and I'm going to, and then I'm putting lemon zest. I'm zesting some lemons that I'm going to put into a little bit of sugar. But just for starters, we're going to build the dough, and I put the starter in, and of course, if one loaf is good, 2 loaves is better, and if 2 loaves is good, 4 loaves is better, which is as much as my stove will fit. So I'm going to make 4 loaves of this bread, I started the starter last night with 200 grams of dark rye flour and 200 grams of water. And the starter's been sitting in my stove with the light on overnight. And I also started my auto lees last night, so let me show you those. Since I'm starting this all a little bit later in the day, me starting the auto lees last night and leaving the light on in the stove just kept this beginning of the dough. This isn't the full dough, it's just the flour and the water put into here so that it starts to strengthen just while I sleep. And then this is my starter. And you see it hasn't quite doubled in size. This starter that I use, the rye, it doesn't double and bubble, but look at that. I've got plenty of bubbles. It makes it rise, and it is in the good enough club as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so this loaf is going to have a 75% hydration rate, and how I calculate that is this is a quadruple loaf, so I've got 1,420 grams of water that I put in here, the auto lees. And then I've got 200 grams of water in the starter, because this is half and half water, half flour, and we've got 400 grams of starter. So 1,420 plus 200 that's coming from the starter is going to give us 1,420. And then because I'm doing this, I'm going to add a little bit of water to this to get us up to 1,650 grams of water all in. 1,420 that I put in initially, 200 from the starter, another 30 grams that I'm putting in now. That'll give me 1,650 grams of water. And then if I take 2,000 grams of flour, plus the 200 grams that are in the starter, that's 2,200 grams of flour. So I take the 1,650 divided by 22, and that comes up to 75%. So of this entire dough, there's going to be 75% as much water as there is flour in it. That's a 75% hydration. That was clear as mud. We'll do it another time. All right, so I'm going to start out with my handy dandy little scale and I'm gonna zero this out. I think I'm gonna do this a little bit of a different way because I want this, let me test the temperature. I'm starting this dough at 1 o'clock, right? And if it's gonna have enough time to rise and so forth, be shaped today, I need the temperature of this dough to be in the high 70s. This dough is sitting at 82 degrees. That's fine. I don't need to do anything with the water. So, okay, so I've got some water here. I'm gonna put my auto leads, zero that out, and I'm gonna add 400 grams of starter. I always wet my tools a little bit so that there's less sticking. So I just dipped my spatula in some water. Look how clean that comes off. So that is 198, almost 200 grams just out of here. Oh, that smells so good. Warm and yeasty. This starter's like cement. So if I wet my finger, it comes off much more cleanly. And I need another 200 out of here. And I want to be able to leave a little bit in this jar so that it is there for the next time I'm going to use it. My finger, I got 372 grams in here. That gets me to 396. 398. And another little smidge out of here. 402, good enough. So now I'm going to take the rest of my starter. See, there's very little, just the scrapings. And I'm going to kind of scrape the sides so that they don't get all crusty. And gather them up at the bottom together. I don't feed my starter every day. I leave this in the fridge until the next time I use it. And probably because I'm baking every week, sometimes twice a week, this is enough. If I just build that out the night before, it raises enough. I've got active starter, I can bake. So this goes in the fridge. So now I've got 402 grams of starter. I'm gonna zero out my scale again and put in my salt. Doesn't matter what salt you use. I'm using today Himalayan pink salt, extra fine. I've used extra coarse, who cares? Salt is salt as far as I'm concerned. In this case, I've got 12, my recipe calls for 12 grams. Most recipes call for 10. I put a little bit more because we're at high altitude and that helps slow down the rise. 12 times 4 loaves gives me 48. So I'm looking for 48 grams of salt. You can do it, 48. All right, 48 grams of salt. This will be my dough. Oh, I forgot the water. And I need another, so I'm going to zero this out again. And another 30 grams of water. 30, there we go. So this is my dough. Next, I'm going to combine it. Really combining this dough well is vital, right? I see some people who don't spend as much time on this. So first I'm wetting my hands because that'll help this not stick. And I'm going to start by just kind of dimpling in. This is something new I've learned, new method. I'm just dimpling like you would focaccia, though I've never made focaccia, to just start the process of letting this water and this starter incorporate and the salt. And now I'm going to grab and pull. I'm going to wet my bench a little bit. Wet. Dump this out. And look at that sloppy mess. You might ask why I start my autolyse the night before. Most of the stuff you'll find on the internet says that the autolyse, which is just combining the flour and the water and letting it sit, everything I'm reading says 30 minutes. That's plenty enough. I just do it at the same time because I found that doing it for longer makes absolutely no difference, and then I don't have to wait for that autolyse in the morning. So you see this is a gloppy mess here. It sticks to everything. This starter's all over the place. I want to combine this for 6 to 8 minutes so that all that salt, all that starter is fully combined and uniformly dispersed throughout this dough. Grab it in the middle, slap, fold. See? Middle, slap, fold. And I'm going to do this for 6 to 8 minutes until I can see that all that starter is well distributed. Okay, so I've been slapping and folding this for 6 minutes, a little bit less. And you can see how much more structured this dough is. And it looks nice and uniform. You can see my window pane. It's still a little bit, if I pull it out too much, it's gonna rip. But I got the beginning of a window pane. I think I'm gonna slap it a few more minutes. That looks, look at that. It's beautiful. All the salt, I'm not feeling any graininess. It's kind of dry to touch, right? A little bit tacky, but that gives me a good starter. I'm going to put that back in my raising pot and leave it for 30 minutes. Okay, so now I'm prepping my my lemon zest stuff. So I'm getting the zest off of lemons and putting them into some sugar, because if I kind of combine those two together and let them sit for a while, the sugar will draw out some of the zest oils, which supposedly gives it better flavor. Who knows? We're doing this from scratch. So I've got my little zester. So I've got the zest of 8 lemons, 2 per loaf, in 2 tablespoons of sugar each. So that's 8 tablespoons of sugar. I'm going to let that sit there while I futz around with this other stuff. And I've already done one stretch and fold on the dough. I'm going to incorporate these in, both the blueberries and the sugar zest, into the second stretch and fold. Before I do that, I want to get some of the liquid out of these blueberries. I hate using all this paper towel, but that's what we're using, so. These have been draining for about 10 minutes. Pretty yummy. Nothing wrong with that, is there? Okay, here's our second stretch and fold. And by the way, a note on all of these lemons that I've zested. I'm gonna go ahead and juice these all. I don't know if I'm gonna use that now, but those can go into a freezer ice cube tray. And then I've got little cubes of fresh lemon juice to put in whatever I'm cooking. So let's see how warm this dough is staying. Oh wow, it's bubbling up. Yeah, baby. Perfect, it's holding its temperature. It's at about 76 degrees. There it comes. Yep, that came off pretty clean. All right. So I'm just spreading out the sugar lemon zest Now, sugar tends to increase the speed of fermentation. So I want to really watch this loaf carefully because I got sugar from two sources, don't I? I got the sugar from the blueberries themselves and this sugar that I'm putting into these loaves. And this is all 4 loaves. I'm going to wait until probably, I like including, pop that bubble because I can't resist. I'm one of those bubble poppers. All right. I don't have the hand skill to divide up a fully fermented pile of dough into multiple loaves. I tend to release too much of the gas because I'm fondling it too much. So I will split these up into the loaves after a couple more of these stretch and folds. Once I'm satisfied that all of these inclusions have been distributed adequately in this dough, that's when I'll divide it out and do the last handful of stretch and folds as 4 individual loaves. Look at this, man. I may have gone a little overboard on the blueberries, but you know what? If it's worth doing, I say it's worth overdoing. Which didn't serve me very well on the garlic loaf, but who cares? I'm going to eat these ones. Oh, God. Wash my hands. I think it said a tablespoon, but I'm just going to do a little squeegee like that. I think there's plenty enough sugar in here. Good enough. There's some honey. Okay. So now I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to fold this over. This is kind of a mini lamination, isn't it? This one over here. This one over here. And then I'm going to do a few coil folds just to get this whole pile of dough used to the idea that there's a bunch of fruit in here. You see how the berries are already starting to kind of dimple the top. You can see that it's getting incorporated. The fruit increases, I mean, the reality is where the fruit pokes through, it's going to rip the dough, but we want to minimize that as much as we can and let it do its thing for another 30 minutes. Okay, ready for our 3rd stretch and fold. This is the 2nd one with all the goodies in it. Bubbling up nice. I'm going to wet down my bench. Wet my hands. Loosen up the sides. It's really interesting once you've got this sugar in here and the sugar from the fruit. I found the same thing with the cranberries, that the dough at points gets really loose and berry down. Some of this, maybe some of that. In here. I'm just going to grab up all these berries that have been escaping, pat them down, see if I can get some liquid out of them. All right. I'm undaunted. I feel a brilliant set of weird loaves coming on. And at the end of the day, we've got sugar, blueberries, it's rising. I bet no matter what it looks like, it'll be pretty good. And you slather enough butter on it, it'll be really good. So that is our messy 3rd coil. Another 30 minutes. Okay, we're going to do our 2nd stretch and fold with all of the inclusions in here. And on the last stretch and fold, we're finding that I did not drain enough of the liquid out of the berries. So we will continue working with this sloppy dough and see what happens. I'm gonna loosen this up. Oh yeah, this is wet. Pour it out. Yep. I'm gonna pat it down. Ooh. Not such a good idea. Quick pads. Quick pads so that it doesn't stick. We'll see. Mostly I'm going to clean the liquid out of the bottom of here so that when I put it back in, at least I don't have that liquid in there. Let's see what to do with this. If I were laminating it, I would kind of be folding it all together and letting it sit and then doing some more stretch and folds. So I think that's kind of what we're going to do. Pull this over here, pull that over here, pull that over here, pull that here, maybe flip it. And before I get too nutty with it, I'm just going to kind of pour this back in here and let it loosen up a little bit. Get my berries, cherry on top, and give it another 30 minutes. Okay, after the last stretch and fold, which got us to intestine-like proportions, I think I'm going to take this opportunity to split these up into their individuals and then try to work the dough from there. So that's what we're going to do. Whatever. We are having a big experiment. Take this off. Loosen this up. Still wet as could be. Slop you out. Okay, it's coming free. Okay, so I ball it first. I'm gonna wet my little scraper. Wet it both sides. Kind of cut this down the middle. Take this first side. I'm eyeballing it first. Putting this in here, and that gets us to 1.18 kilograms. Second one. 1.24. Those are pretty close. Third one. Eyeballing it. That's a nice sound. 1.34. They're getting bigger. And 1.26. So this is 1.26. 1.25. So these two are pretty close. 1.18 and 1.31, so I'm going to even this out a little bit, add a little bit of this one to this one. That gets us to 1.27 and this one to 1.25. That is close enough. Now these are in here. I am going to do a couple stretch coil folds right in here. Coil fold.
coil fold. After the last intestine thing, I'm going to be conservative and not go too many. That's enough right there. This is what I'm loving about this sourdough journey. It's an adventure. All kinds of weird stuff happens. And at the end of it, with the exception of that one garlic loaf that I've made, some of them rise better than others, but they all taste good. And every once in a while you pull a loaf out that just is beautiful. That springs and cracks, and they all taste good, right? And they all make an admirable butter delivery system. But it's a lot of fun during the process, and once in a while I get a spectacular outcome. So we'll see you in a little bit, another half hour. Okay, so we're going to do our last set of coil folds before we let this finish out its bulk fermentation. And I'm going to take, before I do the coil folds, because right now you see this is kind of spread out and it's oozed to the sides. So I'm gonna mark with, this is kind of a crayon affair, right where the dough meets the container. And I'm gonna do this on all of them so I don't forget. I use this sourdough chart that I love. I got this from the Ultimate Sourdough Bulk Fermentation Guide. And I don't pay attention at all to the approximate timing except just to give me an idea. Mostly this tells me what's important is the temperature of the dough, which in this case is 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and that I want it to raise 50%. So this plus another 50% before I form it and put it in the fridge for its cold fermentation. Because at 75 degrees, it's going to take longer for the temperature to reduce to the ambient temperature in the refrigerator. And that whole time that it's at 73 degrees, 74 degrees, 72, 70, it continues to rise. So if if this were at 80 degrees, I'd only be letting it rise to 25 or 30% above its initial. So that's how I use this. But at 75, and then it gives me an idea. At 75, it says it's going to take me 7 hours for it to get to that, which would be 5:36, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11:30. And I bet it'll raise before then. Coil. Boy, this dough is wet. But I would rather have it a little bit underproofed than overproofed myself. Good enough. 5 and 7 hours from now, these will be ready to form, put in the banneton, and then stick in the freezer overnight. Then we'll bake them tomorrow and see what on earth happens with this wild journey that we've been on with the blueberry lemon sourdough bread. Yeah. Okay, so last night I finished up shaping these unruly blueberry loaves that I'm making for the first time, and were way too liquidy and kind of a mess and looked like intestines, the whole thing. So now we're gonna bake these bad boys, right? And when we get to this part of the program, there's a few indicators, moments of truth, right? This first one is when I turn them out of the banneton onto and get them into a pan, right? And if it kind of spreads all out and is loosey-goosey, I know I might have a proofing problem, who knows? So here we've got this, and boy, I can sure see how wet this dough is. I love these things, by the way. These fit right into the loaf pan. I typically don't do the rounds. I mean, those are beautiful loaves, but these are I like a loaf of bread that kind of is the shape of a loaf of bread. It's easier to cut, blah, blah, blah. So I'm gonna take this and turn it out. See what we got going. So turn this over here. It is spreading out pretty quick, but it's not like just kind of flopping out. So we will see. I'm gonna kind of tuck this in a little bit, brush off that rice flour. Yeah, we will see. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of regular baking flour on the top of it. Before I score it, just because that'll give it a nice look. All right. And when I score it, I typically score it kind of down 2/3 over, and I go deep and at an angle. And when I've got inclusions, I'm kind of cutting through blueberries and whatever else is in here. So sometimes I may go back and get a second swing at it. Make sure that I get a good score. Now you see already this thing is spreading apart. So my first assessment is that I may have a loaf here that I have some type of a problem with the proofing of. We don't know. But scooted that nicely in here. That's what I love about these things. So now I've got a nice score. I've got a little bit of flour on the top. I'm going to put them both on a tray, which will just slow down the heat enough from the bottom to hopefully prevent the bottom from getting too brown or burning. Right. Then I'm going to cover these with another pan and stick them in at 470 for 25 minutes. Then I'll turn down the temperature to 450 and keep them covered for another 5 or 6 minutes, and then finally uncover them for the last maybe 10 minutes to brown up. So that'll be the real moment of truth. But so far I'd say these came out of the Bannetons okay, a little loose. We'll see. Okay, now we've got the second moment of truth where we pull it out of the oven and uncover it and then throw it back in to brown. This will tell us whether or not it rose. Here are my loaves. Oh, look at that. Beautiful ear, rose nicely. Looking good. Woohoo! Now I'm going to put this in for another 10 to 15 minutes uncovered. Okay, so we're going to pull this out and see if they're done. I determine their doneness by the internal temperature, which I want to be between 2 and 210. You can see this one rose better than that one, but they both rose. So I'm going to stick this in here. I find that loaves with inclusions sometimes take a little bit longer. This one is still going 180, 185. I think I'm going to give this another 5 minutes. Looks like it's topping out around 110. I'm sorry, around 190. I'm actually giving it another 10 minutes. So I went 20 minutes at 470, covered. Another 10 minutes covered at 450.
And this will now be 20 minutes uncovered. We'll see. Okay, so these have an internal temperature of 205. By the way, these silicone things are worth buying. I've tried the parchment paper and various other things. The parchment paper always, I'm not good enough at shaping this dough. There's always a little crease at the bottom which grabs onto the parchment paper, and then I'm trying to pull paper, whatever, versus pick it up, peel it off, put it down. Worth the price of admission. All right, so those are our first two loaves, and I'm getting ready to shape and put the other two in. These are perfect. I'm not going to change anything with them. Okay, so these blueberry lemon zest loaves are out of the oven, and just from a pure bake point of view, they look beautiful. These ones I left in the oven a little bit longer covered than these ones, and then uncovered them, and I like the bake on that. I like that that's a little bit softer, it's a little bit lighter, but you can see they all have nice rays. You can see all those blueberries in there. They all have nice ears. We'll be in the cutting into it, seeing what the crumb looks like and what it tastes like, but so far so good. Okay, so I cut into the loaf, and it looks pretty darn good, and it tastes pretty darn good. Look at that beautiful crumb. You can see the streaks of the lemon zest, lots of blueberries. It tastes pretty good. I think the next time I do it, I'll do a little bit less lemon zest. It's good, but it doesn't need quite as much. I did the zest from 2 whole lemons. I think I'll just do 1 next time.